Oh, welcome in, brand new Friday Scramble, May 6th, 2022. I'm Rick Gehman. That right there, Andy Lack. Andy, the boys are playing without hats. Things are happening out there.
Yeah. Do you like this golf?
Yeah,
Seeing players struggle like this and getting frustrated?
big
Yeah,
time.
me too. Yeah,
Big
it's
time.
a nice change of pace to see them uncomfortable once in a while.
It's the right amount of rain that it's annoying, right? And the guys, it drips off the front of the bill of the cap. They want to turn it around. They take it off. They're trying to stay dry. How long is the caddy going to hold the umbrella over the golf ball? I love everything about it. I love seeing these guys squirm.
It's like just the right amount of rain where if you were playing,
Ugh,
it would be super, super borderline,
yeah.
and you'd probably take some heat from canceling, but at the same time, you knew if you did it, you would be pretty miserable, which
Yeah.
I think is where the PGA Tour is at right now, right? Like, we're not quite at a point where we can stop play, but it's pretty miserable.
42 weeks a year, they get perfect conditions. I'm happy to watch them struggle through this. But you're right. I mean, it would be a lot easier if I was out on the golf course and I had a dozen towels and somebody to hold an umbrella for me. This would be tough if I was out on the golf course. I'd be like, let's go drink beer.
Rick, if you're a professional golfer, would you have your caddy hold the umbrella over you while you putted?
Okay, I yes. So why do they leave like 3 seconds before you pull the trigger? Like you're not bothering anybody. The caddy's going to stay very still. I'm shocked that they don't just stay there the entire time.
I was thinking the same thing because I was watching Ricky do it. And
Yeah,
I was like, if you're going to hold it over him during the practice strokes when he's right next to the ball, like, why not just, why not
honestly.
just run it when he's actually putting, right?
Yeah, my caddy would certainly be holding it over me while I putt, which is actually it's fascinating. Some of these guys look like they're going to melt if they get wet.
Yeah. Yeah. And some of them look like it's interesting. Jason Day looks super uncomfortable, but like he's also playing really well.
Right.
That it's, it's tough to tell with a lot of these guys. I think it's kind of just a war of attrition. And I think you want to get off the course, right? And we'll talk about that once we get to the prize pick section and the live odds too. But I see no reason to believe that if they continue play this afternoon, it's going to get any easier for them.
Yeah, so we are indeed presented by Prize Picks. We'll get to that segment very, very quickly here because we've got the afternoon wave that's going to get started here very shortly. So the code you're looking for there is Rick. It's a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Make sure you're logged in. Make sure you're ready to rock and roll. Andy, you and I were kind of chatting before we went hot. There was I described them as the PM AM truthers this week, and while that wave has a shot in hand from Thursday, the course is playing more than 3 strokes over par. And you and I were kind of questioning, if you're a PMAM guy, are you hoping they keep playing, or are you hoping that they stop soon and the guys that are going to go out this afternoon go out tomorrow morning?
I think if you're a PMAM guy like myself, and shout out to the quick plug of the Wednesday DFS article, I broke all of this down. I broke down all the different scenarios. There were a couple, right? And I think if you're PMAM, you have to be feeling pretty good, right? Because I understand that it's playing 3 strokes over par for the morning wave, but I'll give you two scenarios. Let's say that they keep playing. Do we really think that it's going to get any easier? The rain's supposed to continue until 8 p.m. tonight. If it's playing 3 strokes over par right now, it's going to play 3 strokes over par in the afternoon even more because the rain's going to continue. Or if they stop play, guess what? It's supposed to rain tomorrow too. And the only difference between today and tomorrow is that it's supposed to rain tomorrow, but with more wind. So what I talked about in my article was the worst situation is playing golf on Saturday morning. Like you want to avoid at all costs playing golf on Saturday morning. So I feel pretty good about the fact that if I had to make a guess, Rick, I think they're going to continue playing. Like I think they're going to get all of today's round in, to be honest with you. And I'm okay with that scenario as well.
I'm impressed with the way the greens are holding up, which is kind of what
Mhm.
you need. As long as there's not puddling on the greens and there's not lightning, they can play. The fairways are obviously collecting water, but they're already playing lift, clean, in place anyway, Andy. So it's not that big of a deal. And if you're in kind of standing water, you take your relief and you move on. And as long as the greens look great, and as long as they continue to do that, I agree. I think they play. I think they play on.
And we talked about this too, right before we went hot too, is right. They do not want a Monday finish. That's a nightmare for network stuff. That's a nightmare for getting off schedule. The field and Byron Nelson next week is actually really good. A lot of people are making the trip and they have the PGA championship in 2 weeks, right? So if it's borderline but uncomfortable, which is what it is right now, it's all about electricity, right, Rick? Like
Mhm.
they can play in pouring rain as long as there's not giant puddles on the greens if there's no threat of thunder or lightning, right? Which there's no real electricity in the air from all the weather that I'm looking at currently. So I think we're going to get an afternoon of some wet, but very, very, very fun to watch golf, and maybe a couple of nice betting and prize picks opportunities as well.
Yeah, we'll get to this. I'm loving the ways the I'm watching these shots get hit into these greens, and they look like they have had, they look great. They're reactive. They're not super soft. So that's optimistic. Okay, I mean, there's some redemption storylines at the top of the leaderboard. Would you rather see Jason Day win, Matthew Wolff win, or Ricky Fowler win? Those are your only three options.
That's tough. Probably Ricky. What about you?
Why Ricky?
Well, I have him on a season-long fantasy team.
Okay.
Um, put it this way. I think about the future. I feel the least optimistic about Ricky.
Mm,
So if he can, like, I'm still like not worried about Matt Wolf. Like he's 23 years old, right? Like I think like long term he's going to be fine. He is super 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 young in his career. He's like 2 years younger than Zalatoris and Scheffler. I think people forget that, right? So
yeah.
whatever Wolf's going through a rough patch right now. Like it's way too early to make a judgment call on Matthew Wolf's future and his success in professional golf going forward. Jason Day, I still feel like is far more talented than Ricky Fowler. So I still feel like if we're just talking on talent alone, I imagine that you have to feel a little bit better about Jason Day's future. I think he's 2 or 3 years older than Ricky, but Ricky's the type of guy, Rick, where like if he just continued this decline, would you be that shocked?
I mean, yes, right?
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I would be, because he was what, a top 10 player in the world. He had top fives in all the major championships. He was contending a lot, even if he wasn't winning as much as people thought he should. And he was one of the best putters. And like to lose the losing the putter thing is big time troublesome, right? That's
Yeah.
that is it's not like when you get older and you lose your flexibility and you lose your swing, or like he should be able to putt pure until he's like 65 years old. And the fact that he lost that, I think is I'm jarred by it. I'm jarred by it.
But what would you say is a more precipitous decline, Fowler or Jason Day? Because I think Jason Day's peak was so like
Oh
what
yeah.
Scotty Scheffler is doing right now, Jason Day did for like a year and a half.
Yeah. He won like 7 times in 17 starts.
Yeah,
And and they were like big time event. It was the closest thing to like a Tiger run that we saw. Like Jason Day did it for 18 months. Tiger did it for 18 years or whatever. But that's like the
right.
closest it's really like one of the closest runs we've seen.
Right. Who do you think of those three? We'll throw Wolf in there too. Who's most likely to win a major in the
I guess
next two
Wolf.
years?
Oh, the
You
next
think
two
Wolf?
years.
Yeah.
I was taking forever into consideration, but um, I mean, Wolf at US Opens is like that's great, right?
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so I think it's still probably Wolf, but I'm not like super stoked about any of them.
PGA Are you excited for the Oklahoma narrative to take hold starting in 2 weeks?
I'm excited for it too. So what always happens is you'll get the Oklahoma narrative and also, oh, by the way, the Texas narrative, because it's like close
Mhm.
enough. And then also like whatever else you can, like any state that touches Oklahoma will
Gary
also
Woodland went to
eventually,
Kansas.
yep,
Call.
yep, like you'll eventually get that thrown in as well. Like it'll expand from just a Tulsa narrative to like a South narrative.
I always also love the misconception of geography in states. Like you'll hear a lot of the time, like if the PGA Tour is like, say in Miami, you'll hear like, Billy Horschel, he's an SEC guy.
Right.
He's a Florida guy. It's like 4 hours from where he lives.
Yeah.
That's kind of like uh Tulsa is like 2.5 hours for it's not like you can't go quickly from where those Oklahoma State guys went to college to Tulsa, right? It's like you hear it sometimes like these guys are both Canadian, they have to be friends. It's like
Right.
they live on completely different sides of the country.
Right. Yeah, like Tulsa to Houston, it's 500 miles away. It doesn't feel like it, but it is. Like they're
Yeah.
500 miles apart. That's not a quick drive. I got some other stuff I want to talk about, but we got to get to the props here because we've got guys teeing off here. They did push tee times back 10 minutes, but I still want to get to these, Andy. So we will hit these PrizePicks props, and we will do it after this quick break.
Andy Lack is not only the co-host of The Scramble, but also produces his own show, the Inside Golf Podcast. It's available twice a week, focusing on course breakdowns, DFS, and betting strategies for every PGA Tour event. Admittedly, I was drawn to Andy for his data-driven approach, which you'll find on his Sunday shows as he breaks down the field. But I'm even more impressed by his passion for course architecture, which offers a different perspective of our great game. Mix those together with insightful and humorous guests who don't take themselves too seriously, and you've got a recipe for a great podcast. Follow Inside Golf Pod on Twitter and download Inside Golf wherever you download podcasts.
Okay, Andy, let's prop it like it's hot here. 4 props over on PrizePicks right now. And just to set the stage before I unveil what those 4 props are, Andy, we're looking at the scoring average. It's 3.25 strokes over par. I assume that is going to play a fairly significant role in the way that we run these props out.
Absolutely. And I don't think that there has been enough of an adjustment. So based on the PrizePicks line. So I think we're both kind of riding the overs. I'll start it off with the lowest over under on the board was Rory McIlroy, which is justified, right? I think Rory probably should be the lowest over under on the board, but I went with over 69.5 strokes. Again, kind of just a number play. We're not totally sure if they're going to finish today. I think you have to be feeling good about the over in either scenario, whether they finish or they don't finish. And like you said, this course is playing like last time I checked, I think 3.25, 3.3 strokes over par. So you're asking Rory to gain over, close to 4 if he shoots 69, like close to 4 strokes on the field, right? So again, it's just like a pure number play. It's like how many times, like the best player, if you're gaining a stroke on the field consistently, like you're the best player in the world, maybe you're one of the best players in the world. So, you're asking for Rory to gain 4. If Rory shoots even par today, like that's a really, really good round. So I think the number is just a little bit too low.
Yeah, I'm with you. I actually stuck with all strokes here because I did not think that they were adjusted
Enough. Yeah.
Yeah. Gaining 3 shots on the field, which is what even par is. More than that, you gain 3.25 right now at even par. That's a massive number. Gaining 3.25 strokes to the field is a massive number. So I'm going back to the well here. Tony Finau over 70 strokes. And I've finally figured, I don't have Armina here today. So I finally figured out how to put the slide up. It took me a second, but it's Rory McIlroy over 69.5. It's Tony Finau over 70. It's Keegan Bradley over 70.5. It's Terrell Hatton under 11.5 greens. We'll talk about that in a second. But Finau over 70. We cashed cashed on it yesterday at I think it was 69.5 or something like that. And it just has not like, okay, the course is now 3.5 shots more difficult and the line moved a half a stroke. Like, okay, I'll do that. There are 2 qualified golfers or 2 eligible golfers on PrizePicks right now, because you can't wager on every single golfer in the field, but of the guys that are available on PrizePicks, Finau is one of 2 that lost strokes on approach yesterday, or at least a stroke on approach yesterday. Like, I'm just going back to the well here. These lines haven't moved enough.
Yeah, I thought it was Finau was such an interesting case for me this week because he had the best ball striking week of his career last week. And now you see, I mean, it's only round 1. We'll see what he does the rest of the tournament. He's back to losing strokes on approach again, which kind of just goes back to the point where it's like, okay, maybe, it's not as putting is more variable, but still, like, we don't know. We want to look at kind of a larger sample size. The next one that I did was I took Hatton under 11.5.
I think I like where you're going with this.
Yeah. Well, so he lost over half a stroke on approach yesterday.
Yeah.
12 greens on this course, Rick, is like a very good round in perfect conditions, right? So, to hit 12 greens on this course in this weather, that feels like a big ask. I try and stick to the stuff that we can quantify, but there's a universe where Hatton is just like, I have no interest in this. Like that,
Right.
I could see him getting flustered and frustrated very easily in these conditions. We'll give the benefit to the doubt because he's a Euro guy. So you assume that some of those guys maybe played in conditions like this a little bit, but still, I mean, this is just like objectively not fun. And I could see Hatton getting a little frustrated with.
It's like strokes gained, annoyed, right? Like, this is like the most annoying golf you can play, and he's the guy who just like tilts the hardest in the annoying situations.
Yeah, and he's also been known to complain about course setup. And right now we're dealing with a borderline course setup situation. So if he's, if he sees puddles in the fairways or puddles on the green, he's gonna be upset about that.
And
So
just to circle back, if he does it, like, if for whatever reason they don't finish this round, he's gonna have to play tomorrow in what does not, as you were talking about it, like, it doesn't seem like it's getting any easier.
right. It's just gonna be even more windy tomorrow. Right. So that's kind of the perfect thing. You kind of almost have a hedge on if you play like the over props for this afternoon,
Yeah.
because you don't, it would be a different scenario, Rick, if tomorrow morning was supposed to be pristine and you had to kind of play a guessing game of whether they're going to finish or not. But even if they call it off, which I don't think is going to happen, but it's in play, it's not like tomorrow morning's getting any easier. So I would run, not walk, to hit some of these over props for the afternoon.
Yeah, and the chat has let us know, and I can see it on PrizePicks right now. So Keegan is up half a stroke to 71. He was my next one. I had him at 70.5. 71 again. Like, it's not, I don't think it's moving enough. You're asking him to gain multiple strokes to the field. He lost 2.25 tee to green yesterday. Finau's up to 70.5. Again, he's gonna have to gain 3 shots on the field to basically bust you there. They're moving in that direction, Andy. I don't think they're moving fast enough. So I think this is kind of a speed thing. I think you should probably get them in now if you want to lean the overs.
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of them were. I'm not surprised that they're moving because when I first looked at them, even last night, I was like, whoa. And I got some in last night and they even moved a little bit this morning. So I'm with you. I would say grab them now. A lot of these guys are teeing off pretty soon too, right, Rick? Like very soon.
Yeah, so like Finau goes off in like 33 minutes, or his prop locks in 33 minutes. Keegan has 56, Rory in 44. So these are all like basically under an hour from now. So
okay. Yeah. So while we're finishing up the show. Yeah.
Yeah, so you're going to want to get involved. So again, just to recap, Rory over 69.5, Hatton under 11.5. Keegan's now up to 71. I'll still take the over. Finau now up to 70.5. I'll take the overside of that. I just don't think these lines have moved enough. And the code that you're looking for, it's Rick. There's a link in the description. You can go and get your deposit match. You can go continue to do your part in bankrupting the guys over at PrizePicks, and we'll do our best to help there. I'm just looking through some of these other ones here. 3.2 over par. Okay. I mean, is strokes the way, like, is strokes the way to go? Like, I just leaned on strokes because I was just playing the strokes gain number. I glanced at birdies are better, Andy, and I was like, like you can shoot a 73 and make 5 birdies, and I'm nervous about that type of deal. I just did you? I stuck with the strokes intentionally.
I think strokes and greens in regulation are the one that you want to look at. I would stay away from fairways because I think the ball is stopping exactly where it lands, which actually makes the fairways play a little bit wider. But I think if you're in the rough, like I've seen I don't know, maybe it's just the golfers that I bet on, but a lot of these guys now with how thick and luscious and wet the rough is, like if you have 200 yards from your approach shot and you're in the rough and you don't have a good lie, like you're laying up, like you have to lay up. So I would say strokes and greens in regulation would be the ones that I would target the most.
Okay, cool. I want to look at the live odds real quick, and then we can have a little fun, and we can get out of here on a wet, rainy. Oh, Joel Damon, that ball's gone. Wet, rainy Friday morning here. But first, we are going to hit a little ad if I can find it. Here it is. Here we go. See you on the other side.
If you're not playing daily fantasy on PrizePicks, then you're not really playing daily fantasy. They offer nothing but props, and they do it better than anyone else. You pick 2 to 5 players on an over-under and can win up to 10 times on any entry. They allow mixed sport entries, meaning you can take the over on LeBron James and the under on Jon Rahm. The golf-specific props are amazing. Birdies or better, fairways hit, greens in regulation, round score, and now, yes, single hole props. That's right. What score will a golfer make on a specific hole? I have PrizePicks specific tools on my website to help you build the best entries, and now PrizePicks is offering a 100% instant deposit match up to $100. Just use the code RICK at sign up or click the link in the description. That's code RICK. Good luck.
Okay, Andy, quick look at the live odds here. Jason Day plus 275. He's 9 under. He has just tapped in for par on number 7. That's his 16th hole of the day. Max Homa, 6-1. Rory McIlroy hasn't teed off yet. 8.5-1. Joel Damon, who I just mentioned, I think that ball is gone, is 14-1. I'll note a couple of things. Max Homa, not only does the game look strong, Andy, that full, thick beard that he has that is now so perfectly manicured. Like I love it. I love it. He looks determined. He looks tough. He looks like this rain doesn't bother him one single bit. I love everything I'm seeing from Max Homa right now.
Does when we talk about baby swag and perspective, would you say it counts when you know you're going to have a baby, or does you have to have the baby first to have perspective?
So it starts to count once you need that narrative to fit your story. Like once you're in on a guy, like it starts. So I'll say, yeah, it starts right now. Homa already dealing with that perspective because I like him.
Okay. I like that. I don't love his odds. Like plus 600. I'm not sure if I'm there yet. I would, I made a little bit of a joke when I said this, like 50% hot take, 50% I actually believe this. I'm curious to get your take on this as well. Like, we're all betting Corey Connors at 20-1. He's 30%. If you close your eyes and just do a blind resume test, are we sure that Corey Connors is better at golf than Luke List? Like, if you actually stack up the players and you look at the stats, by the way, Luke List was 7,100 and 130-1 this week. Like, are we sure that Corey Connors is better?
No, I'm not
It's
sure of it.
it's tough when you actually look at it, right? Because your immediate answer is like, yes, but then you actually line up the resumes, you actually line up what both of them are good and bad at, and you actually line up the results and the wins. And it's like, they're kind of the same guy. Luke List has a better win and a more recent win and a better short game. So it's like, my only point is, it's like I was looking this entire week for guys because I think the Corey Connors mold is perfect, right? You want those super, super accurate drivers of the ball that keep the ball in play, step one, step two golf. And I was looking at guys that were maybe a discounted version of that. And Luke List was one of the guys that fell into that category.
It is kind of bizarre what goes on with Corey Connors and some weeks like the tribal allegiance to him, and the other weeks it's like, well, he finished T18, he stinks, I'm moving on. Because I had somebody try to convince me on my live chat on Wednesday, like I forget who the other person was, but it was like Corey Connors has way more win equity than I think it was Matt Fitzpatrick. And I was like,
that's an insane statement.
I was like, first of all, Corey Connors has won one time. It was 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
And it was this like kind of one-off, not taking anything away from Monday qualifying and then winning the golf tournament, but it doesn't happen that often for a reason. It's kind of like catching lightning in a bottle. And versus Matt Fitzpatrick, who has 7 wins?
7 wins before his
like
38th birthday, and some of them were in like really good fields on the European tour. Like Fitz is like a prolific winner before the age of 28 on the European tour.
And he's won like the biggest events on the European tour. I've actually probably done quite well on Corey Connors. Like if I had like here's how much money you've won and lost on everybody. Like I've lost everything on Aaron Wise. Like I've probably been good on Corey Connors because I don't really bet him to win because he has one win, Andy. And he hasn't been. Has he contended? Has he contended to win recently, or does he just pile top 20s?
He gives it like a look a lot, right? Like he was never in contention at the Masters. I had him at the Heritage, and he was never in contention at the Heritage. Like a lot of the time, he's like T12 heading into Saturday, where he's 5 strokes back from the leader.
Right.
And, he could get in the mix if he shoots a low round, but he generally doesn't. No.
He makes his weekly ace on Thursday or Friday, and then he's like T6, and then he finishes T13. And that's what he does. And it's great. He's like, it's great for business. He's going to have a great long career and make a ton of money. But is he going to win it? Like, I can't even remember him being in. I mean, obviously the match play is different because, he was down to the final 4. But like, I can't remember him in the heat of the moment.
Yeah, good point. I can't think of like a late Sunday afternoon, like, oh, it's Corey Connors, like has a chance to win this golf tournament on the back 9 in a while. I'm not sticking a fork in him yet. I mean, it's too early in the tournament. Yeah. He could be great, but my whole point was, I think like the groupthink aspect around certain players gets kind of crazy sometimes. And suddenly you look up and it's like Corey Connors is 30% and everyone's betting him at 20-1. And after a certain point, it's like, okay, one person says that they're going to do this. And then everybody gets so scared of missing out that, how many bets were there on 130-1 Luke List? Yeah. Right. Is Corey Connors 6 or 7 times more likely to win this tournament than Luke List, who just took down Torrey Pines, right? And hits it longer than Connors and has a better short game than Connors. Right. So, I mean, that's the only point I was making. I completely buried the lead and got off on a weird Corey Connors tangent. I think the bet you want to make is Cameron Young.
Oh, I saw he was charging.
Yeah.
Let me just, I got away from it. Let me see what his number is right now. Dude, I love this kid so much. He's so freaking good. He's 28-1 right now.
I have him pre-tournament at 50, but if
something,
I don't think I don't think 28-1 right now is bad value because at some sports books, he opened the tournament 28-1. Now you could make the argument 5 strokes back. Does he have as good of a chance to win the tournament now as he does before the tournament started? I would say kind of. Like if he's 4 strokes back heading into the weekend, I would imagine that some of these guys at 5, Rick, like between Matt Wolff, Denny McCarthy, and Callum Tarrant, 2 of those guys are going to shoot over par this afternoon, right? So if what is Cam Young at 4 right now? So
He's
if
at
Cam
4.
Young,
He's got like 6 holes to go.
okay, so if Cam Young gets to the clubhouse at 4, I think 4 is in the top 10 heading into the weekend.
He's got a
right?
15. I agree. He's got a 15 footer for birdie on number 4. We'll see if he can make it. For the first time, I got Cam Young at 34-1 at Circa, which is one of the few times I got a worse number than like the industry standard because someone beat me to him. So like you could see it on the board, like what his like the way they do it in Vegas, right? Is they don't readjust the spot on the board for the odds. It's just like, okay, you stay in your spot. And you can see all the other guys around him were like 50, 60, 70-1. And then it's like 34 on Cam Young. So somebody beat me to him and moved that number.
Would you say that in Vegas, do you place the majority of your bets through mobile wagering, or do you going to the sports books and getting the ticket in hand?
I place all of my bets mobily.
Yeah.
The people who do, my buddy Scott carries around 1,000 tickets with him at all times of like losers or like future bets, and he places all of them in person. And I'm like, you have to be a psychopath to do this. One, I don't want to take the time to go like, okay, I'm going to drive to a casino, go inside, place my bet so that I can have a ticket. That if it wins, I've got to go back in and I don't see what the benefit of having the ticket is.
What's parking like there too? Like, do they have parking garages like under the strip? Because you're coming from the suburbs, right?
Yeah. Yes, correct. So we live like 20 minutes off the strip. Yeah, they all have like you could self park or okay. So the guys at Circa take really good care of me. So I just valet it at Circa, and then they comp my valet. So I just like go right in the front door, go straight to the sports book, and then like Circa would be the only place that I would do it. But yeah, like some of these places are like hard to get in and out of. I'm not gonna like spend 15 minutes parking to walk inside at I don't know MGM Grand to like place a bet.
Yeah, is Circa where is the Blue Wire Studios? Is that Circa?
That's at the Win. That's at the Win.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, then, so how do you have all this pull at Circa then?
They're just my guys. They're just good guys, and they're big into golf, and they lay the best golf numbers out there. And I mean, they just do a very good job. They're kind of like, I am by no means, and I've said this a million times, like I'm not a professional gambler, but that's who they cater to, right? Like they don't like limit anybody. Like they run a sports book the way a sports book should be run.
Right. That's fun. It's interesting too, just going back to the convenience question around mobile wagering. Like what's so funny to me is I forgot what documentary this is, but professional bettors used to have like runners where they would have these guys that would spend their entire day running around the strip, putting in tickets and with the line moves and stuff like that,
so
because you had to do it all in person.
It still kind of exists, especially if you're trying to get a lot down. So there is also a side of it that if I was doing this professionally, okay, don't quote me on any of this. I'm obviously not a CPA either, but if you were doing this professionally, you could offset your winnings with losses, right? So I think at this point, like I could just at the end of the year print out my log from Circa or whatever, and it would have all that in there. But there was a time where you kept all your losing tickets so that you could prove that you offset all of these wins with losses.
Right.
So what used to happen, and I this might still happen, I have no idea. These off-track betting, these horse racing places, you ever been into one of these?
I have not, no.
It's just like shit, what's it called? They're called like the Turf Club, at least in the Northeast. I don't know how many locations there are, but like it's
Okay.
just a place where you can go in. There's screens on the wall. You can place your bets on the horses, and there's, you know, all the races from all over the world are on there. At every single turf club, there'd be some guy who hangs out there, who will cash your winning ticket for you, right? So you win $10,000. He'll cash that ticket for you. He'll take the tax form. Okay, so he'll file that under his taxes at the end of the year. You'll cut him in for like 10%. And then what he'll do is he'll collect all the losing tickets from everybody else and take them out of the trash can and pick them up off the ground so that he has more losers to offset that $10,000 win that he claimed. So then no one ends up paying tax on it.
Yeah, there's so much like gamesmanship in sports. Like a lot of the time you hear like some professional sports bettors, if they know that they have the ability to move lines, they will just like bet aside just to change the line, even if they don't believe it, and then know that sports books will overreact and they'll be able to come back on the other side and place a bigger bet on the other side.
Yeah,
It's a fun deep dive pod we could do sometime because I'm
you know
fascinated
what?
by
I
that
would love to
world.
have you on. I know a guy, I don't know if he'll come on, but who like does this professionally, wagers, especially during football. It's like 40 grand a game, like 40
Yeah.
grand aside. And like, that's what, and I'm like, wow, like that's, if you can pull it off, but like, he's got like, but yeah, he knows what books are going to limit him and all that stuff. I don't know if you'd come on and talk about it, but that would be fun to chat about.
Yeah. See if you I think that world is absolutely fascinating. Anyway, Cameron Young. I think Cameron Young's going to win this tournament.
He missed the birdie putt, but he's still 4 under. That leads me to, we can do this final thing. Cause I think it's something that you're doing a lot more of the strategy stuff, which I think is so critical and fun to talk through. And I think it kind of goes back to, we're so flawed as humans that I can look like, I know, okay. Half of the reason that I did not like Jordan Spieth at RBC Heritage is because of his practice swing.
I
Right.
fell into that trap too, by the
So
way.
like, how flawed are we that came into play? It's like the Moneyball thing, right? Like the Oakland A's, went out and got all of the flawed players that for whatever reason, someone's perception said they were flawed, and built this team. So like, is there something? And maybe it's strokes gained total, maybe it's birdie or better percentage, maybe it's whatever. Like, if you could only use one metric, you don't watch any golf any longer. Like you don't see any golf. You don't know if the guy shot his best round of the week on Sunday or on Thursday. You don't know anything except this one metric that you have access to. And this one metric that you can either create or it can already exist. Like, that's how you make decisions in fantasy and wagering. Like, what would that metric be?
God, this is such a great question. I don't know if this is the right answer, but I'll tell you the first answer that came to my head.
Okay.
Probably strokes gained approach. How many courses on the PGA Tour is that the most important statistic? All of them?
All of them. Well,
Yeah.
yeah, all of them.
Some more than others, but all of them, it's pretty damn close. I think if you were just like, if RickRunGood.com just went black and the opening screen was like, here's the cheat sheet, but you can only see one thing on the cheat sheet.
Yeah.
I think I'd probably choose show me strokes gained approach.
That would make it a lot easier running the website. The entire website is this one stat, and everywhere you look, it's just strokes gained approach. That's it. That's all you can see. I mean, is that more predictive than just saying strokes gained total?
No, it's not. But then how would you find value? Right? Because strokes gained total, you can kind of see what strokes gained total is based on the betting board, right? Isn't
Okay, so
isn't the betting board and the DraftKings pricing like it's generally pretty close to strokes gained total? Now, are we talking weighted strokes gained total? Right, like that's where it
that's
gets
the problem
complicated.
because I'll tell you.
Yeah,
Okay, so last 50 rounds, coming into this week for this field, Rory was number 1, Fitzpatrick was number 2, strokes gained total, Henley 3, Hubbard 4, Connors 5. Like we've got a weighted situation in there because a lot of that is you've got a third of those rounds for Hubbard are Corn Ferry Tour rounds. So I don't
right,
think you can just say strokes gained. So strokes gained approach would at least cut out the non PGA Tour rounds because they're not measured.
right. I don't ever want a situation where the numbers are telling me that Mark Hubbard's the third best player in the field. I want to avoid that at all costs.
What if it was just the betting odds? What if it was just the implied win equity based on the betting odds? But they don't have the same goals that we have.
Yeah. Yeah, and the lines also aren't created. The lines are created to like get the most action, right? Like people ask like, John Rahm's odds at Mexico were ridiculous. He's plus 300. Guess who was the most bet golfer on DraftKings Sportsbook to win the Mexico Open? It was John Rahm at plus 300, right? So there, I mean, why is Russell Henley 20-1 at DraftKings Sportsbook? He gets people bet that at 20-1, right? If he wasn't bet, he would move. So I don't know. I want a metric that will be able to help me find value because I can already look at the betting odds and I want something that is not going to be. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Can we invent one? Like what would it look like? Strokes gained approach. And then how do we find value?
Maybe I do strokes gained ball striking, Rick.
Now we're cooking.
Yeah.
Now we're cooking.
Strokes gained weighted ball striking because I mean, I think this is a very elementary way of, God, this is a whole other podcast, but I think this is a very elementary way of betting. But I think a lot of people, and you could just do this, is you can look at the betting odds and then you can look at the biggest discrepancies between who are the guys that are hitting the ball the best on the betting odds and select those guys. Now, there's going to be times where you're going to run into situations with players like Luke Lest and players like Keegan Bradley, where their ball striking stats are going to tell you that they're one of the best players in the world, but they're not, because it's not just as easy as their putter's going to flip. Well, if their putter flipped all the time, then those guys would have 5-6 wins on tour, right? So that's not always how it works, right? But I still think that it would probably be able to help you more than it hurts you. Like I wouldn't want to see putting, right?
Well,
Could you
I don't
make an
know.
argument for putting?
I mean, you'd miss out on every Cam Smith win.
Yeah. Very true.
Right. Like, and also I guess we have to define what our goals are. This probably is a larger pod we'll do at some point, but like if our goal is to find outright winners, that's one thing.
Yeah.
I did see a tweet and I can't remember who it was, so I wish I could credit him, but basically the most correlated thing that this guy could find to fantasy scoring, which is different, was their top 20 number, their top 20 odds, not their outright, not their top 5, not their top 10, not their salary, not their ownership. It was top 20 odds, which for fantasy makes a little bit of sense because you still get a little bit of upside, but it factors in like making the cut for a fantasy golfer is enormous. Obviously, because you get the opportunity for 2 more rounds. So it's like the middle ground of upside and making sure you're around for 4 rounds.
Right. Like if we're talking about this with DraftKings, would you want your statistic to be average DraftKings points, made cut percentage?
Right. I don't know.
It's
DraftKings points gained. Like,
yeah.
I feel like we are at, and it's because we don't have, so this all started because I watched Moneyball last night, which is,
so good.
Just
one of the best just movies of the last decade.
I forgot how much I enjoyed it. Like, I
So
knew I
good.
enjoyed it, but I really enjoyed it. We are so it is because the whole point of that is, the A's were looking at stats differently, and we have the problem that we have in golf is there's a lot to look at.
Yeah.
There's a lot of noisy stuff, but also we don't have the complete information, which is
Right.
like we're like pre-Moneyball right now. There's gonna be a time when even more information is available, and people are gonna continue to use bad stuff.
Right. Right. Well, we've already seen like the analytics revolution start, obviously, with strokes gained was really the start of advanced analytics in golf. But I think what people forget is strokes gained is still a work in progress, right?
Yeah.
It's far from a perfect metric. And Mark Brody, the guy there's a great book on this, by the way, which I would
Yeah, it's
recommend.
on my shelf. Oh, you can't see
Yeah.
it, but it's over there.
But it's no, it's excellent, and it's
Yeah.
reading that book was kind of my introduction to getting into golf stats. But anyway, like Mark Birdie will be the first to tell you that strokes gain is a work in progress. It's evolving, right? So we're going to look back in 5 years from now, and there's a good chance that we'll say, "Man, we were really measuring around the green that way. Like
Right.
that's what we were using to measure around the green. We
Yeah.
weren't looking at degree of difficulty and slope and factoring in
Were you
speed and all,
short-sighted? Were
all
you
the
is the green 6 feet above your head? None of that stuff gets factored in.
exactly. Exactly, right? So I would say we're still kind of at the start of this. There's so much in golf. Golf is such a nuanced sport that there's so much left to dive into that we're kind of only scratching the surface.
I don't know if I've ever discussed this because it hurts my heart, because as much of a stat guy that I am, there are a lot of stat errors input on the PGA Tour's shot link.
Yeah, there are.
I'll give you an example. If you want to go back and look, I think it's Friday. Friday at the Players on 18. Scotty Scheffler's approach is counted for both Scotty Scheffler and Brooks Koepka. So what happened is Koepka actually hit his to like 4 feet instead of 33 feet like Scheffler did.
Yeah.
So, and then he made the 4-footer, but it counted it as a 33-foot putt made. So Brooks's strokes gained putting number got a huge bump for that. And it was the wrong shot that they put in,
Yeah.
which makes you wonder how often that's happening.
Have you ever been to a golf tournament and like chopped it up with one of those guys? Like
Uh,
there's a lot, I try not to, even
they
though
have
I have
no
so
clue
many
what's happening.
questions. There's a lot, human error is a part of all sports, right? But there's a ton of human error. And sometimes like I see these guys and they're eyeballing things.
They'd be lucky to be eyeballing things. Every time I stand behind them, they can't see where the ball is winding up. And then someone
Yeah.
has to like run over there and be like, it's right here.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
don't know.
Anyway, do you want to do two or 3 minutes on Sergio before we get out of here?
Yeah. So I don't want to call it a Sergio hot mic because that kind of implies that he was saying something he did not think was going to be available. However, like he was just yelling at the rules official, that ended up being rightfully so about starting the clock too soon. But then obviously making the comments of can't wait to get out of here. Only have to deal with you for a couple of more weeks, which is more than strongly implying that he will be joining the Live Golf League.
Yeah, and it's like the question that I have to ask Sergio I mean he declined to speak with the media yesterday afternoon, so they didn't have the opportunity. But we talk about Live Golf and the Saudi Golf League as improving the golf product, right? So do you really think that there's going to be a scenario on that tour where they just let players spend 15 minutes looking for their ball between holes? Like, isn't the point of Live Golf to improve the product? And good TV is not watching Sergio walk around in weeds for 15 minutes looking for his ball. Like, my question is, what does he think is going to change?
That's the thing. He's either not smart enough to realize that nothing's going to change, or he's just being spiteful towards a tour where he's made like $40 million.
Right.
And also, when you say shit like that, it kind of implies that the recipient cares, right? Like, it's not like it was a threat, like, oh, well, only a couple more weeks until I don't have to deal with you again. And the rules official's like, I don't care. And me watching at home, like, I don't care. Like, you're now just yelling at clouds. You're just speaking into the void. And this is so this is kind of the low key thing about, and we've seen this for a year and a half. These guys, most of them, trying to convince themselves why they're going over there for this. They know it is immoral. They know there's a lot of money, and they are trying to find reasons to say why I'm going over here. Lee Westwood is defining sports washing, and it is like he's got an earpiece in from the regime on what to say of, well, F1 does it, and it looks like they're trying to turn things around, and yada, yada, yada. Like, he's trying to convince himself. Sergio, like, oh, you're being so unfairly ruled against. I better go to another organization. Like, Bubba has tried to do it. These guys are trying to convince themselves. And I think that this is the way it's manifesting for Sergio.
Right. And I think there are valid reasons. I don't think that there's a ton of self-awareness surrounding some of these answers. But to me, if I'm looking at this from my perspective, and I'm a player that's nearing the tail end of my career, like say a Sergio or a Justin Rose or an Adam Scott or an Ian Poulter or a Lee Westwood, right? And I'm in my early to mid 40s. And now I'm going out on the PGA Tour every single week. And I'm having to beat like every day. It's like, oh, now I have to deal with this Cameron Young kid. Like, put it this way, Alex Smalley and Brandon Wu are better golfers than whoever the 50th ranked player in the world was in 2005. It's just the PGA Tour has never been this deep. And it's like, oh, Davis Riley? Who's
Right.
Davis Riley? Brandon Wu? I have to deal with this guy now, the stud from Stanford? Like Doug Gim, this guy Sahith, who won the Haskins Award? Like, all these guys you could still find widely available at like 200 to 1 most weeks. And they're amazing. They're amazing at golf. There's a chance that right now those guys are already better at golf than like Ian Poulter and Lee Westwood and even Justin Rose and some of those guys, right? So I don't understand why I get why a lot of them are going. I think a lot of them probably look at the landscape in golf right now and probably internally have the self-awareness to say, maybe this isn't the best use of my time. But you're right. The way that they go about it is like, we're trying to grow the game.
I don't agree with the guy. Like, I know why the guys are going to go. I don't agree with it, but I respect Jason Kokrak for just saying from the very start, I want the money. I want as much money as possible, as quickly as possible. And I was like, okay, Jason, like, if that is your goal, like, you're making the right decision. If that is your only goal, the rest of it is other examples of these guys, and especially Sergio, being a clown, as we kind of always knew.
Yeah. And it's like, I completely understand, like, what person in any profession is going to look at a new job opportunity that has the potential to earn them far more money? These guys all have families and are involved in different various business organizations and all these different things. Like, any single person in any single profession, it's like your duty to weigh options, right? And like consider these things. But that's not the way that they're framing it, right? They're not framing it as, okay, I'm a professional golfer, this is my job, right? Actually, Lee Westwood kind of backtrack and said that at the end, right? But I think it kind of just goes back to the thing where it's like, we did the full podcast, Rick, where we talked about Live, and we kind of said at the end, like, are we sticking a fork in this? And we were both kind of like, no, I don't think you can still stick a fork in this because the money is too great. And
Too much
to
money.
be honest with you, Rick, like, I don't know how we define good field. I don't know what this is going to look like in television. I don't know if this is going to be something that we're going to cover. I don't know if this is something we're going to be able to bet on, but they're not going to have trouble filling these fields. And there's going to be quote unquote good players in these tournaments.
For sure. And we're like 4 weeks out. We're like 4 weeks out from their first event. So obviously this is all, it's going to come to fruition. We're going to see who goes and tees it up. I mean, we know Lee Westwood, we know Sergio Garcia, we know probably, Jason Kokrak and Kevin, not like the guys that we thought are the guys that they're going to get. So, we'll see how they shape out the rest of the field.
Certainly. Yeah. I'm excited. I guess.
All right.
I mean, I don't
I
know.
don't
Are
know.
we going to cover it?
Are we going to be able to watch it?
Yeah. Is it going to be like streamed on livegolf.com?
There's a lot more questions than answers right now. I don't know if we'll cover it. I mean, I don't know. Because on one hand, these are golfers that we talk about all the time. On the other hand, if I am so adamantly against the sport washing effort, does me covering it help with that?
Yeah, it gets really messy there because it's a lot of the DP World Tour has their hands also in some of that stuff too, though. And we cover the DP World Tour. I mean, we don't, but it's widely accepted too. I think that what's interesting to me is how is golf media going to look at this? Like, are they going to maybe you can ask your boys at Circa, are they going to put out betting odds for this? Because how are they going to get any interest if people can't bet on it or play DraftKings on it? That's huge. That's going to be huge, right?
Yeah, I'm still or watch it. I'm still waiting to hear, is a network going to pick it up, or like you said, is it just going to be like streaming live on livegolf.com or like something like that? I don't know. There's a lot of people, and it's now been a year and a half or whatever that we've been leading up to this, and now in the next 4 weeks, like, I guess people are gonna have to make these decisions. Are we going to broadcast it? Are we going to talk about it? Are we going to write about it? Are we going to have DraftKings contests for it? Are we going to allow bets for it? All these people are going to have to make decisions in the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
Ourselves included.
Right. Well, we'll see how it all shakes out.
We'll be back on Tuesday. Tuesday, 12 p.m. Eastern time, Rick Run Good YouTube channel. This has been a Friday Scramble. Andy Lack is available on Twitter at ADP Lack Sports. You can find me at Rick Run Good. We'll see you Tuesday. Good luck.